Hello, William Johnson here, and this is another percussion tutorial. In this episode, I'm going to go over some basic music theory ideas. There's a lot of ground to cover in what I'm going to present, what I'm going to go over. So I'm going to just kind of touch on some surface ideas and list some other videos in the not comment section, but the details below of other videos, links to other videos where I've spoken about this topic or similar topic or relevant ideas. So anyways, I want to go over some music theory, some basic counting or music theory as it pertains to counting within the music. If you've heard terms like play the snare, the conga on the end of one, or play 2 16th notes or 1/8 note on the end of 3 and the 1 and blah, 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 blah. And you're not exactly sure, you're not 100% sure what the instructor or the teacher or the person, the individual is talking about, well, that's what this lesson is going to explain. I'm going to go over some of the ideas of what that actually means and why it's beneficial as well. So it helps in improvisation, it helps in learning new songs, it helps in having a structure or knowing where you're at within the rhythm or the song, soloing. It's a good skill to develop in your playing, and this is mainly targeted towards those that are beginners in the context of contemporary music. Think contemporary rock, pop, worship music like Elevation or Hillsong, CCM, country style, rock and roll style, pop music. So anyways, I'm going to start with the time signature of 4/4. Okay, so that's common time, and that'll be explained within the explanation of this video. Before we jump right into it, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, I'd love for you to be a part of the subscription family here on my channel. So hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and you'll be notified of any future videos. All right, so let's jump right into it. I mentioned our time signature. Okay, so basically the word that I'm going to use a lot, it's a key word here, is patterns. It's all about patterns and finding a pattern. Okay, so I'm going to draw a couple bar lines here, a couple horizontal lines. I left the cap, my marker here, open, so hopefully this is going to be dark enough for you to see. Hopefully that's dark enough to see. So anyways, I have two vertical lines here. Okay, and there's a space between the line, and this is called a measure. All right, it's all about patterns. Okay, so in the world of rhythm, all right, this is where our rhythm is going to dwell, our rhythmic pattern. All right, and within these bar lines, we're going to have 5 horizontal lines. So between these two vertical lines, we're going to have 5 horizontal lines, and now we have a music staff. All right, so I mentioned 4/4. We're in common time, we're in 4 beats. Okay, 4 beats, 4/4. That number, whenever you hear 4/4, the number on top, that number 4 basically has to do with how many beats are in the measure, how many notes in the measure. So even if there's 10 notes or 16 notes, it has to make up what would equal 4, okay? 4 beats. For what? Well, that's where the bottom number comes into play, all right? So this space is going to take up the amount of time of 4 beats. But what gets a beat? What gets a count? What kind of beat? Well, if I say 4/4, then that means 4 quarter notes, because that 4 stands for quarter notes. So let's draw 4 quarter notes, okay? So even if there's 16 notes, it has to equal the amount, the note values of what 4 quarter notes would be. All right, so if, for instance, if they were 16 16th notes, well, that is equivalent. That amounts to the same amount of time it would take to count 4 quarter notes. Or if there were 8 eighth notes, okay, these are quarter notes. But if there were 8 eighth notes, all right, and I'm going to explain all this. right? Okay, so I have 8 notes, but these 8 notes take the same amount of time as it would to get to these 4 quarter notes, starting at the left here, all right? So if I was to count these quarter notes and the tempo, the speed at which we're playing is like this, all right? Then I would count with the numbers, the actual quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, within each quarter note, the time it takes to count that 1, you can count 2 eighth notes. So that means it's almost like, it's like double time here. So we would say, instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, we could also count these 8 eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, I have 2 drums in front of me. I have a snare on my right and a conga on my left, a quinto, right? So what I'm going to do is count quarter notes with my right hand, and this is all going to get to the whole idea of playing the end of 1 and play on the second beat and all of that, all right? So if I play 4 quarter notes with my right hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how much time it took me at that tempo to count out 4 quarter notes. But with my left hand, I play eighth notes, then it sounds like this. Quarter notes, eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, so I actually played 8 notes with my left hand. The ands, the word and counts as a note. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now you'll notice that this first eighth note, these are eighth notes down here, and I actually counted them out. I made a mistake there, I'm sorry. In the midst of my wanting to explain to you, I forgot to draw flags on the notes. Such a noob thing to do. Sorry about that. All right. Believe it or not, this is probably like the 10th time I've made this video trying to get it just right for you. So I have 8 notes down here, and these first 2 notes line up together. All right. That first quarter note and eighth notes are lining up. But right after that, I had the and of 1. Now, that doesn't mean that the quarter note and the eighth note sound the exact same. They don't. An eighth note is a shorter note value. It's shorter, or it sounds quicker. Quarter note, eighth note. Okay? If I play them together, it makes it a little easier to understand. Quarter notes. 2 eighth notes. Okay? Think about the word like pie and pizza. So we could say pizza pie, pizza, pizza, pizza pie. I sped up the tempo a little bit. Let me slow it back down. Pizza, pizza, pizza pie. You notice that word pie was a little bit longer. It was a longer of a note than the pizza. So it's a shorter, quicker note, the eighth note, but it doesn't mean we speed up the tempo, because no matter what, it still has to be the same tempo. And these 8 eighth notes still take up the same amount of time it would take to get to those quarter notes, or to count those quarter notes, okay? So we have 4, and then the pattern, remember that? Pattern starts over, okay? Now, I'm going to get to, I said these first 2 notes line up, but then the second one doesn't. I'm going to get to that in a second. But first, I'm going to come to this idea of pattern, all right? Let's say that this first quarter note up here on the top is a kick or a bass note. And I'm going to write the letter K. All right? Wow, look at that. Perfect. Let me grab my other marker here. This marker is no bueno. All right. Let's see if this marker is better. It's a little better. All right. So I have K, and then the second, I have S for snare. And then I have K, kick, and then snare. Okay? Or bass, snare, bass, snare. All right? Now, let's use my left hand with the fist for the bass, and my right hand for the snare. Kick, snare. All right? And do a very basic rock beat-ish. Okay? Bass, snare, bass, snare. Or 1, 2, 3, 4. I just played 4 notes, 4 quarter notes, and then the pattern starts over. Okay, so that's one full measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1. So we played one whole measure. We start back over. That was 4 beats. Now, say I wanted, so I'm playing the kick on 1. Let me put some numbers here so you can get a whole idea here before we get to the ands. Kick is 1. First snare is number 2. The next kick is 4. Got it? All right. So if I say the snares are playing on 2 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now, what if I said add another kick, another bass note on the end of 1? Well, and let's say it's an 8th note on the end of 1. Okay. So now look down here where I drew these 8th notes. All right. We got an 8th note here. We got an 8th note here. We got an 8th note here. We've got an 8th note here, and so on and so forth. Well, look at this second 8th note. It's right in between these two. It's right between quarter note 1 and quarter note 2. Beat 1 and beat 2. The entire space between 1 and 2, that entire space makes up an 8th note, okay? Or is equivalent to an 8th note. And that's the value of the space, or note value, we could say. So if I say play an 8th note on the end of 1, well, a bass note on the end of 1, then it would be like this. Let's count it out. 1 and. Count all 4 beats. 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and, 1 and. All right? Now let's add it into the rhythm. So we have kick, snare, kick, snare. But we want to add another kick on the end of 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Boom. So what if we said, okay, that's cool. You added a kick, another kick on the end of 1. Okay? Or in between kick, snare, we added another kick on the end. All right? But let's also add one on the end of 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right? So the ands is the note you play after the number you just said. So if I say the end of 3, that is the space or the note right after the number 3. And of 4. Right after the number 4. Okay? So if I say play an 8th note on 3 and the end of 3, then it will be 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. Okay? So I have 2 8th notes. Boom, boom. Pizza right on 3 and the end of 3. 1, 2, pizza, 4. Got it? All right? So there's using words there, some food words to understand how these rhythms sound, but also, so now you know what that means when we use the word and. Okay, play on the and of, play on the 1. It's basically the first beat, second beat, third beat, fourth beat, or the and, the space after. That's with quarter notes and 8th notes. 16th notes is another thing. All right. So, but before we get into the next lesson, 16th notes, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.